Welcome to Issues and Insiders from Carolina Journal. I'm Teresa Opeka. Today we are interviewing State Auditor Beth Wood. Beth Wood is the first woman to hold office, and it is her fourth term. Auditor Wood is a public servant with over 30 years of experience, having worked in the auditor's office for 10 years before her election in 2008. Today we're going to find out a little bit more about Miss Wood, what made her decide to go into a career in accounting and also run for state auditor, and why they call her the state watchdog. Welcome, Auditor Wood. It's so great you could be here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I
Thanks.
appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. So you are the first woman to hold the office in North Carolina, and you've also, it's your fourth term. Those are both quite the accomplishments.
I would agree. The office has been in existence. It's a constitutional office. So the office has been in existence over 100 years as the state auditor, and I am the first female to ever sit in that seat. But I think more importantly is that I'm only the second CPA to sit in that seat. And yes, I'm in my fourth term. Very excited about what we've done, where we've come. So yes, I'm very blessed, very appreciative of those numbers. First female, fourth term.
Yeah, both to be commended.
Thank you.
Both to be commended. So I want to get to know a little bit about you first, because maybe not everybody knows a little bit of the personal background of Beth Wood. So, like, where were you born and raised? Where, college you went to, hobbies, things of that nature.
So I was born and raised in Route 1, Cove City. And people ask me all the time, where is that? Mm-hmm. And I say, well, it's right outside of New Bern. And they say, well, why don't you just say you're from New Bern, because I know where that is. And I said, because I ain't. I am from Route 1, Cove City, and I love the fact I'm from there. My dad farmed out there. We were raised on a farm. Very humble means, some would even call us poor. But my parents were able to help me go to college. I was a dental hygienist for 10 years and decided I wanted to go back to my first love, which was math. So I put myself back through school at East Carolina University, received my accounting degree, and then my CPA license. And from there, started this profession in the accounting field.
Okay. Any hobbies you like to do? Anything fun?
I am a very active. I've played softball. I've played bowled. I've played racquetball. I love sports.
Okay.
But I'm also 68 years old, and they're a little bit hard on the body. So now I love to play cards.
Any particular games? Any?
Hand and foot, spades, and Texas Hold'em.
Oh. Okay, excellent, great. So we touched on this a little bit ago about what inspired you to choose accounting, and then also inspired you to run for office. So I guess we'll tie those two together.
Well, I loved being a dental hygienist, but and I was married at the time. When I divorced, I figured out that I wanted to be able to take care of myself. I wanted a profession where I could make my own choices. I wanted to take care of myself. So again, I went back to my first love, which was math, and went into accounting. I absolutely loved what I did. I worked for Rayovac Corporation as a cost accountant. I worked for McGladrey CPA firm as a governmental auditor, and I worked for one of McGladrey's clients as a CFO. And then I got fired from my third job because I wouldn't cook the books. So I wanted to stay in the eastern part of the state, but put out resumes, and I received an interview at the Treasurer's office to go in and be a part of their local government commission. And out of 125 applicants, I got the job. So it brought me to Raleigh. Got into state government, hated state government, hated it. When I'm in the corporate world, it was all about the bottom line. Mm-hmm. I came into state government, you couldn't find the bottom line. So I'm ready to get out, right? But then I was looking for a job, and there were several possibilities, but I found a job with the state auditor's office. When I got there, I recognized that for all the billions of dollars the state of North Carolina spends, two things: where it came from, which are the citizens through taxes, and then that the state auditor's office is the only eyes and ears that citizens have on how their tax dollars are being spent. So I found my home. You grew up poor, hard for your parents to make ends meet, and here are all these tax dollars being spent in Raleigh. And this is the agency that is auditing how those monies are being spent, including Are they being wasted? So I just delved into the state auditor's office, and I recognized then, at that point, no CPA had ever sat in that seat, no CPA. And I thought, I can do this. I can really do this. So Ralph Kimball lost the election in 2004. I made up my mind that I would run in 2008. So I worked for the guy that I ran against for 3 years. And then I ran against him in 2008. I had a primary and a general election, beat both of them handily.
Well, we mentioned before, you know, you've been in the office for 4 terms, and both Democrats and Republicans vote for you. I mean, that says a lot. I mean, you said bipartisan support.
It's one of the platforms that I ran on. Having worked for a Republican auditor and having worked for a Democratic auditor, I got a chance to see how both would handle. Neither of them took the politics out of the agency, neither of them. And as the auditor of all taxpayer dollars, there should be no politics in that agency. So it was one of the items in my platform that I ran on, that I would pull all the politics, and we have. We are just as hard on the right as we are on the left. We're just as hard on the left as we are on the right. If you're wasting our tax dollars, we will find it and we will tell on you.
And that's why you're called the state's watchdog.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah. So how has the office changed over the years? Before you were in office and up to now, how has it changed?
I would say 2 things particular, 3 probably. One is that we've pulled all the politics. All the politics are gone out of the agency. When I first became state auditor, my staff would say, in my opinion, and I would say, you don't have one. What do the facts tell us? You don't have an opinion. What do the facts tell us? The other thing I would say is that when, under the other 2 auditors, we would put out reports. It would get some media time, if you would, over the first 2 or 3 days after it was released, but not a whole lot was ever being done about it because the findings were refutable. We would put out an audit report, and the agency's response would be just as convincing as the findings that we put out. And so our governor and our General Assembly at any time wouldn't know who to believe. So the other part of my platform was going to be irrefutable findings. Now, as a CPA, you know, my colleagues were saying that is just not possible. And I'm like, watch, just watch. So now we have the mantra in our agency, we have to be 100% right 100% of the time. State Auditor's Office has a lot of authority. When I go out to perform an audit or an investigation, you can line up all the attorneys you want to, but they can't stop me from looking at any records I want to look at or talking to whoever I want to talk to. If they try to stop me, I will pull out my subpoena signed by me, and we will get access to whatever we need to. But for whatever we find, we have no authority to change it. So it's incumbent on the General Assembly and the governor at the time to change what we find. If they can't believe us, if we are not 100% right 100% of the time, they won't know what to fix. So again, today, unlike before I became state auditor, our findings are irrefutable. And so you can't not fix what we find because it's very applicable to a more efficient, more effective state government. And again, my findings are irrefutable. And then I would say the talent in the agency is where it needs to be. Back in the day, we hired warm bodies to sit in seats. Today, we are very intentional. We are hiring the best and we're hiring the brightest. I know that there are accounting students, CPAs out there who are wanting to be the best at their job, wanting to be developed the best they can be, and yet have a great work-life balance. I know they're out there, and we are seeking them out, and we are recruiting them, and it's working beautifully. When I became state auditor, I had 201 employees. Today, I have 160. I would take my 160 today and all the talent that we've got than the 201 I had when I became state auditor. So the talent, irrefutable findings, and taking the politics out of the agency. Those are the things that have changed under my administration.
Okay. And now you might have touched on this a little bit. There's been so many cases in the last year, 2 years. Most recently, you talked about unemployment funds being, maybe wrongly given out. How does you and your staff do all of that? How do you keep track of everything? It just seems like there's so much.
There are some audits that I'm required to do. I'm required to do a financial statement audit for the state of North Carolina, for the universities, for the community colleges, and I'm required to do those every year. But we have staff that work on discretionary audits. So what we do is we look at where there is the most risk with a high impact. So again, just like you were talking about the unemployment audit that we did, we gave out $1.2 billion in 1 year in first-time payments to people that had lost their job. And we gave them out late. So you think about, I lost my job, the next check I'm going to get is from the Division of Employment Security, my unemployment check. I do everything I think is right online, and it gets kicked out. And now I'm 30 days, 60 days, 4 months, and I don't have a job, and I don't have a check. So we are looking at, again, $1.2 billion, and why was so much of that late? So we look at where there's a lot of dollars, a lot of impact. We also looked at the 131 Department of Public Instruction online courses. It's only a $20 million program, but these courses that are online are meant for those middle schools and high school students, gifted, those that want to go to college, but can't get certain courses in their own high school or middle school. We found that the majority of those courses being offered to these gifted students and these college kids that want to go to college, that most of them did not meet North Carolina required education standards. So again, the impact. Only a $20 million program, but think about all the students across our state that those courses were supposed to reach. So not so much in dollars, but certainly in the education of our students. So it really is about the risk of inefficient, incompetent, duplicative, wasteful spending, and then the impact, and we choose our topics that way.
Okay. Speaking of the audits you've done, the town of Spring Lake was one where the town manager embezzled money and eventually did plead guilty to that. There was a subject that came up in the news actually today as we're doing this interview about the town of Spring Lake board decided to hire a former Kenly town manager. Now, the story behind Kenly town manager being let go from her job is that she quote unquote, according to the reports, made the environment difficult for the town police force, and they quit en masse. So what are your thoughts about Spring Lake hiring the Kenly town board manager?
I haven't audited the situation, but given my experience on the local government commission, given my experience in all the towns that we have investigated illegal behavior, what I have found through all of this over several years is that when you get a town manager that steps in and tries to bring the town to doing things the right way, not the way they've done them for a lot of years, without processes, checks and balances, that everybody in that group, in that town, that's being made now to walk the line like they should be, will get angry. And so I'm wondering, is this a case when she went to Kenly and she tried to bring in the checks and balances, tried to make the police department and others pay the bills, do their job, their timesheets, that everything, checks and balances, that should be there. Is that the reason that they all quit, because they were brought in line with the proper policies and procedures? If that's the case, Spring Lake made a great hire.
Okay, all right. We'll have to see what happens with that.
We will.
Yes.
The time will tell which it is.
Yeah.
But again, I'm finding that when these small towns that have run themselves like they've wanted to for a lot of years, they have inefficiently spent money, as we saw in Spring Lake, $474,000 stolen.
Right.
And so when you put the policies and procedures in place, the checks and balances, and you don't let these people run the town like they always have, it's going to piss them off. Okay. So again, if that was the case with Kinley, they've made a terrible mistake in letting her go, and Spring Lakes made a great hire. If that's not the case, time will tell.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. All right. So for the office of auditor, what would you, for the future, where do you think the office is headed, or what would you like to see happen in the future?
We've just adopted a new vision. What I've recognized, I do a lot of financial statement audit work that I don't have to, but we've done it for years. That work doesn't benefit the citizens of North Carolina. Now, financial statement audits do help creditors, but there's some financial statement audits that we've done, some financial work we've done, and we've pointed out problems for years and nothing's changed. So I'm going to move those resources, about 15,000 man hours, to doing more performance audits, which are those discretionary audits that are going after wasteful spending, duplicative efforts, programs that are outdated, they don't need to be in place anymore. More work in our Department of Public Instruction, more work at DOT, Department of Health and Human Services, where billions of dollars are being spent, not necessarily effectively and probably wastefully. So moving forward over the next 2 to 6 years, I do plan to run again. Over the next 2 to 6 years, we plan to be doing more impactful audits that directly affect the citizens' lives in making sure that their tax dollars are being spent appropriately. I tell people all the time, for every tax dollar wasted, there's only one of two things that can happen. Either the service that was supposed to be provided won't be, or to replace that wasted tax dollar, we have to go to the citizens and get more tax dollars. And that is neither are what we want to do. So the real idea, the thing that we should do, is identify where they're being wastefully spent, inefficiently spent, and stop that bleeding. So again, going forward, we're going to be moving more of our financial statement audit resources, 15,000 man hours, into more performance audits, more impactful work.
And you said you plan on running again. Do you have any aspirations to run for another office besides auditor in the future?
Heck no. I thought at one time about running for governor. I know that I would be a great governor because I know the state government so well and where a lot of the deficiency and weaknesses are. However, I believe that I have a better opportunity to make a difference in how our tax dollars are being spent. I have a better opportunity to do that as the state auditor of North Carolina. And I'm good at this too.
Anything else you want to talk about really quickly?
I would just say, while I have a passion for what I'm doing, I could never get this done without the tremendously talented staff that are working in the state auditor's office. They are so committed to what we do. It's more than just a job for them. I want to thank the General Assembly for helping me get their salaries where they are competitive with CPA firms, particularly now with the great resignation going on and people looking around. So again, we could never get this important, critical work done without the very talented staff. And so I want to thank them. And again, I want to thank the General Assembly for helping me be able to afford the talent that we need to audit your tax dollars.
Okay. Auditor Wood, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.